Imagine your heart stops right now. Not one day from now. Not in some distant future when you are older and calmer and somehow more prepared. But now, in this exact second, while your eyes are still open and the world still assumes you belong to it. One beat lands, the next one hesitates. Then the rhythm breaks. The monitor jerks, stutters, and becomes a single unbroken line. A cold, mechanical tone slices through the room, and suddenly sound itself feels different, sharper, emptier, almost cruel. Nothing explodes. No invisible curtain dramatically falls from the ceiling. The room is still there. The sheets are still there. The light above you still hums with the same indifferent electricity. But something final has begun moving through the silence. Your chest no longer rises. Your hands no longer answer. And before anyone says the word death, before science starts measuring, before belief arrives to interpret what has happened, one terrifying question opens inside the moment, like a door hidden in darkness. What happens next? What is the first thing that finds you when life loses its grip? To everyone around you, death looks immediate. A nurse leans in. Someone calls out the time. Hands move quickly, professionally, almost violently, because panic inside a hospital has learned to wear discipline as a mask. The living focus on the body because the body is what they can still reach. But if awareness does not vanish in the same instant, then your experience may already be separating from theirs. The room begins to lose its weight. Sound arrives from far away, as if every voice now has to travel through deep water to find you. The ceiling looks strangely distant. The fluorescent lights blur at the edges. The corridor outside stretches longer than it should, its perspective bending into something almost unreal. And at the far end of that corridor, where pale brightness spills over the floor like morning entering a ruined church, a figure stands without moving. She does not rush. She does not command. She simply waits, calm enough to make fear hesitate. In that impossible quiet, one thought returns again and again. Do you see darkness, a light, or nothing at all? And if there is something there, was it always waiting? Science begins with what can be observed, because observation is the only honest language medicine has. When the heart stops beating, circulation collapses. Oxygen no longer travels where it needs to go. Pressure drops. Organs begin to fail in sequence. The body, which a moment ago looked whole, starts entering crisis at every level. But crisis is not always the same thing as instant disappearance.
Death is often described like a switch, yet biology is rarely that neat.
The brain does not necessarily shut down in a single perfect instant. For a brief and fragile window, neural activity can continue in scattered bursts, unstable and fading, like a city losing power neighborhood by neighborhood. Signals flicker, circuits misfire, networks disconnect in stages. And that detail changes everything, because it suggests the first moments after death may not feel like being erased. They may feel like reality slowly coming apart while consciousness is still trying to understand what it is losing. A voice becomes an echo. A face becomes a shape. Time stops moving in a straight line. The world does not vanish at once. It slips away piece by piece, and the mind may remain inside that slipping longer than we are comfortable admitting. This is where the story stops being merely medical and becomes deeply unsettling. Across countries, languages, religions, and people who otherwise agree on almost nothing, there are thousands of reports from those who were declared clinically dead and later revived. Many of them describe experiences that sound strangely alike. Some say they observed their own body from above, watching doctors work with a clarity that should have been impossible. Some describe movement through a tunnel or through a space that felt structured, directional, purposeful. Others speak of a presence they could not fully identify, yet somehow trusted instantly. Again and again, the same emotional pattern appears. The sense that awareness did not end when the body failed. Skeptics argue that an oxygen-starved brain under extreme stress can create vivid, coherent illusions. That may be true, but even that explanation leaves a disturbing question behind. Why would a dying brain produce narratives of observation, motion, presence, and meaning instead of simple chaos? Why do so many people return, insisting that the first moments were not blank, not empty, not gone, but filled with something that felt more real than ordinary life? The mystery does not disappear when we explain it. It only changes shape. The image most people remember is the tunnel of light. But what makes it unforgettable is not the image itself. It is the feeling attached to it. Those who describe it often say that peace arrives before understanding does. Before they know where they are, before they know what they are seeing, before they can even ask whether this is real, fear begins to loosen its grip. The light does not burn the eyes. The brightness does not wound. It feels warm without heat, gentle without weakness, powerful without violence. Some speak of loved ones. Some describe a presence of compassion so intense that words seem too crude to carry it. Others say they felt known completely, and for the first time, not threatened by being fully seen. Imagine that. A moment after death in which panic should be absolute, yet what arrives instead is relief. Then a figure forms through the brightness. She extends a hand. The gesture is simple, almost tender, and yet it carries the gravity of an invitation no living decision has ever matched. Come forward. Let go. Trust this. If this is the brain comforting itself in its final threshold, then it has somehow invented the emotional architecture of grace. And if it is not just the brain, then the light may be more than a symbol. It may be a crossing. But that is only one side of the story, and the other side is harder to romanticize. Not everyone who returns speaks of peace. Not everyone sees light. Some describe confusion so complete that it feels worse than pain because there is nothing solid to fight against. No welcoming presence, no warmth, no explanation. Only darkness without distance and silence so deep it feels almost alive. They describe being aware, but unable to orient themselves inside that awareness. No up, no down, no body, no language, no clear memory of how they arrived there. Just existence stripped of context. Some speak of panic without breath, terror without movement, thought without direction. Others remember trying to reach for something and realizing there was nothing there to reach with. No fire, no demons, no theatrical image of punishment, just emptiness that refuses to answer back. And perhaps that is more frightening than any traditional vision of hell, because suffering at least confirms a world around you. But void offers nothing. It gives no reflection, no resistance, no meaning. It leaves consciousness alone with itself, suspended in a place where even fear begins to lose its shape. So what are those first 5 minutes after death really? A measurable biological process? A neurological storm generated by a brain in collapse? A final hallucination built from memory, chemistry, and fear? Or a threshold we have sensed for centuries and only disguised in different language? Imagine a person standing between two impossible invitations. On one side, a softness that asks nothing but surrender. On the other, a silence that gives nothing back. Between them stands the oldest human question of all. If consciousness continues even briefly after the body fails, then what exactly are we meeting there? Judgment? Comfort? Memory? Regret? Truth? Ourselves? Maybe heaven and hell are not first encountered as locations, but as states of recognition. One says you are safe enough to let go of the world. The other says there is nowhere left to hide from what you are. And that possibility changes death completely. It stops being only an ending and becomes a confrontation. Not with fire, not with clouds, but with the deepest structure of your own awareness when every distraction, every title, every possession, every performance has been stripped away. We want death to behave like an answer because answers are easier to carry than uncertainty. We want a clean line, a final period, a neat conclusion at the end of the sentence of a life. But every honest path into this question leads somewhere more unstable. Science can tell us what begins shutting down. Testimonies can tell us what some people believe they encountered. Philosophy can ask whether consciousness is produced by the brain, filtered through it, or merely housed inside it for a time. Yet none of these closes the mystery. They only sharpen its edges, because the first 5 minutes after death may not simply reveal what comes next. They may reveal what remains when everything borrowed from the world is stripped away: status, noise, distraction, ambition, identity, even the stories we told ourselves to make existence feel manageable. So if your heart stopped tonight, and the room slowly withdrew from you, and every familiar sound became distant, what would meet you first? Light? Darkness? Peace? Confusion? Or the full, unbearable clarity of your own consciousness, with nowhere left to run? Maybe death is not the end of the mystery we fear. Maybe it is the moment the real mystery finally begins. And maybe the question that matters most is not what waits after death, but what part of us will still be awake to meet it,